crested the halfway point of the group stages, and the teams from Group B take to the stage, and by the end of the day, two teams will be one step closer to their dream of hoisting the Summoners Cup, while the other two fall just short. Busan host the LPL Titans RNG for Game 1 as they look to continue their undefeated streak against Europe's Vitality, who want to flip Group B on its head with an upset victory. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, kicking off the day with Chris Papa Smithy Smith, Mark Zimmerman, and Isaac Zale Cummings-Bentley for World's Countdown. This is an interesting transition as we crest that halfway point because prior to today, each team plays only one game a day. Now they've got a marathon ahead of them. 3 different opponents all in the same day to conclude and make their run for that knockout stage.
Yeah, and I think the biggest adjustment you have to be able to make is changes on the fly. You have to be able to adapt from game to game to game so incredibly quickly here. And we saw last year WE pulling out the Caitlyn, at this stage in the tournament. And the teams that were able to adapt to that, pick it up and employ it were often the teams that made it into the quarterfinal.
And I think we have to also spell out that the pace has been ratcheted up this year. Remember, in previous years, you had the first 4 days of groups, and before the format change, there was a few days to VOD review to kind of pick up the pieces on the start of the tournament for you. Now it's just back-to-back days, and that does affect things. All these kind of previous words of how well the Korean teams would adapt in those 3 days off, all that time's gone.
Yeah, the in-game adjustments as well as the mental fortitude that you need now, because you don't get those 3 days off to reset, and you don't have as much time today between games if you lose in a really dramatic fashion to suddenly be like, all right, well, we don't play till tomorrow. Let's go back and look at what we did wrong. You have to mentally reset quickly.
Group B, the first group to face that challenge. Now, throughout Worlds, we've been asking you to share your Worlds viewing experience, whether it's cheering on the Italian Stallion in Sicily or supporting Sneaky in Sacramento. We want to see it, so send your pictures to @LOL Esports and use the hashtag Worlds2018. In case you were curious or need an example, here's a shot of how we Worlds. I mean, what'd you expect? Really?
We're here.
We're here.
Literally see it. It's
Exactly.
Worlds.
Anyway, going into the deciding days, we've got the surprise team from EU. G2 Esports and Flash Wolves are leading Group A, with MSI champions Royal Never Give Up in solid control over Group B. KT Rollsters solidified themselves as the #1 team in Group C yesterday, with Invictus Gaming sitting at first place in Group D. As a reminder, over the next 4 days, we'll see one group in action each day, starting with Group B, where the top 2 teams will advance to the knockout stage.
Yeah, and I think everyone's looking at the 3-0 teams as pretty huge favorites. Doesn't feel like anything can stop those 3 teams, and it's going to be a lot of battles for getting out at second place.
That said, Group A, the one group without a dominant 3-0 team.
Yeah, really. I mean, it has been very, very competitive, and I think some surprises coming out of Group A, and it will be really interesting to kind of track that going forward in the coming days.
Now, yesterday, we saw a massive performance from G2's top laner Wonder as he split-pushed his team to victory against the Flash Wolves. Let's get another look with the voices of the Korean casters.
그래서 와라. 그래서 이거 죽습니다. 이거. 카메 네가 와. 예. 카메 가고 있어요. 카메 일로 와. 그냥 갑니다. 카메 와. 이거 애매하게 마무리되면 플래시를 좀 돌아옵니다. 강타상 자신 있나요? 유럽은 안 오고 뚫어버릴 수도 있는 팀이거든요. 지역으로는요. 자 이거 보죠. 불 껐죠. 강타 싸움. 누가 먼저? 자 먹으면 돼. 집을 가야 돼요. 본진 봐야 돼요. 집을 가야 돼요. 본진 봐야죠. 본진. 집을 가야 돼요. 이게 유럽이다. 이게 유럽 시군요. 자 어떻게 되나요? 갈 수 있나요? 그때 샌드백이에요.
Just awesome to see some authentic reactions from the Korean cast. I get to work with these guys. They pour their heart and soul out. You'd think that was a one-off, but if the game's hype, they'll be there to meet it.
Yeah, and I think we actually received a lot of feedback about our segment following that game, and we went back and reviewed it, and we actually definitely did not do G2 justice for how big of an accomplishment this was, an amazing macro game while also defeating a very strong opponent with it. So we kind of felt like it was not fair, and we had to go back and kind of give them their due, and so here we go, got a little celebration. Woo!
Let's go, G2! Let's go! Hey, I mean, in all seriousness, it was such a huge victory, not only because G2 executed on a strategy in very clean fashion, but also, as we mentioned, because it makes Group A the tightest and most interesting group coming into the second half of the round robin.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, they took down the team that looked like the heavy favorites coming out of those first 2 games. Flash Wolves had looked so good, and G2 kind of dismantled them.
Very much so. Now, that game ended in explosive fashion, and it didn't feel like an outlier in this world so far. Looking at average game time, this is a stark contrast to last year where Ardent Sensor seemed to dominate in the bot lane. This year, we seem to have quite the opposite.
And honestly, the engaged supports are one of the big reasons there. You think of the shooting supports that were last year, the Karma, the Lulu, the Janna, that are kind of gone this year. It does mean that the game's been going faster and faster as we start looking over some of the clips here. This is just the reality here. It's much easier to close the game when you have engaged from the support role.
And I think it's really exciting to allow those supports to have a bigger role than they did at Worlds last year. You know, guys like Swordart who can take over a game and really pop off.
I think that was the big thing, was there's a lot of players last year, phenomenal supports, who kind of got stuck on that Karma, that Lulu duty. You're building the Ardent Sensor every time, and now they are unleashed.
And the unleashing part happens even earlier than just team fights. Remember, they're roaming to other lanes, getting kills. The pace of the game is increasing. The result is shorter games in a lot of places. Really exciting early to mid-game.
Engage supports the name of the game here this time around. I want to talk about some of the other champions that we're seeing behind them in top priority.
Yeah, I think Kai'Sa is the one that has to jump to mind, given that's in the same lane as what we were just talking about. And Kai'Sa fits in so many different ways in the game right now. She can be picked with a bunch of tanks in front of her, and she's going to become a frontline melter. She's incredible at melting through other tanks. Or she can join up in backline dive. She has that assassination potential against key targets that are being picked by other teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a champion that feels like it works along with everything. And that's, I think, what makes Kai'Sa such a power pick right now.
And even just the kit, right? The passive that you get the explosion damage on is synergizes with hard CC, and there's hard CC everywhere. And that's a big reason that Kai'Sa just knocks down all the dominoes in team fights.
A pick that's found its way into multiple lanes so far, Sion. Let's talk about this guy.
I've been really impressed with this Sion, specifically Flash Wolves who've been able to flex it around in a world where mid lane champion pool, especially a blind pick on blue side, has been questioned. Sion mid has looked very reliable and can push. It provides the engage that sometimes combos with the support. And it's just so reliable. Yes, we've seen Wunder and Camille split push against the Sion, but short of the Camille, nothing can really stack up to the reliability the Sion provides.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And another key champion I think that I've been looking at has been the Ornn. It's actually 6-1 throughout Worlds. The only loss coming in the 100 Thieves versus Fnatic game. So, you know, a bit of a lopsided matchup there. And I think it comes again down to the reliability of the engage. If you get a lead, this champion will find you the fight that you need to close the game.
Yeah, there's been talk about, you know, for Vitality, Ornn being a very crucial pick to their ability to continually start fights and keep that pressure game going. Let's check out the action we've got coming up today, though, starting with LPL Powerhouse RNG versus Europe's Team Vitality. From there, C9 and Gen G take to the stage, followed by 4 more Group B clashes, with our first quarterfinalist being decided at the end of the day after any tiebreakers. Now, our first game, RNG versus Vitality, will be brought to you by Riv, Kobe, and Deficio, so let's gauge what they're looking forward to in Game 1.
Thank you very much, Dash. I'm obviously looking for those gloves to come off, for the fights to happen. RNG undefeated, which means I'm going to look towards you guys for that strategy stuff too before we get to the fights. How can Vitality bring a win over the 3-0 RNG?
I think step one, pick and ban phase. I actually want to see them go back to what they did in the very first game they played against Gen G. We have the draft on screen right here. What you notice is things like Ornn, Nocturne, Alistar. Like, you are guaranteed to force fights and get good engages. We just heard also 6-1 win rate for Ornn specifically.
True.
Like, go for this kind of draft. It's so much easier to play on stage.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the engage point, plus something with high mobility for Jizuke. This guy has been outstanding as far as a carry for the team, and anything that allows him to get creative in his path really has found success. The Echo, especially versus Gen G, was such a huge part of their upset.
Yeah, and we know when he becomes a split pusher like we're seeing here when he kills Crown, he can do this against anyone in the world. And that's really one of the key strengths of Vitality. Once they get a lead with their mid laner, he will take over games, but they still need the rest of the team to be able to follow.
It has been crazy to me how successful these guys have been in their rookie year. Jizuke and Attila both. Very reliable carries on the world stage already.
Great stuff from Vitality and RNG. We're going to have to see what happens. The game is coming up in just a few minutes, but for now, we throw back to Dash and the guys at the desk.
Thank you very much, Riv. Can't wait to hear you guys yell your heads off over those games today. After the break, though, we'll sing the praises of the undefeated RNG and tell you what other teams need to change if they want to secure quarterfinals. As we go to break, though, let's take another stroll down memory lane to the MasterCard priceless moment of Uzi's harrowing escape versus OMG in 2013.
It's going to be a rematch of the Chinese playoffs winners finals, and that is going to be insane. When I look at Royal play, Uzi literally makes 0 mistakes every game.
OMG going for the fights. They have the man advantage.
Oh, lovely. Nicely going very deep. Cool going to go over towards Sammy. There's a Stan United being used very early. Uzi is coming in from the backside. Surprise! Here comes the vein. Kill for White. Sam's not going to escape this one. They focus down Uzi. But look at him. He's still alive. He's still surviving. He stays alive. Ace for Royal Club. What an amazing fight coming out of them. Uzi. Wow.
Oh my God! Right there. Royal just ace OMG. This group, you have Cloud9, Vitality, and Gen.G each at 1 win, 2 losses.
It's a tough group. Everyone can win against everyone, besides RNG, I think.
Uzi gets caught, but Uzi does not get killed. He hops and skips and jumps and kills Vitality right where they stand.
But from first game against Gen.G, I feel like what we mainly learn is that nobody's unbeatable.
It's Attila going into the base. Vitality has to buy time. They can't get back in time. They got it! They got it! Vitality will take them down!
여기서 벗어나려면은 C9은 꼭 이겨야 될 것 같아. 바이탈리티랑 C9은.
They're threatening the dive with Amelia now on Sneaky.
Well, Sneaky's dead. He just gets pulled right out. Gen.G pick up their first win of Worlds.
And what an explosive engage.
I think making it out of groups would be just a testament to how good we can be. We need at least one win off of Gen.G or RNG.
Is RNG an untouchable team?
我觉得确实这个差距也在缩小，但就是我们还没有完全的超越他们，所以我们要在这次比赛里面证明我们没有必要超越而自己。
Welcome back to the World's Countdown, where we're about 14 minutes away from that first game of the day. And so far, the reigning MSI champions have looked unstoppable, destroying the opposition in their first 3 games. Today, Vitality is the first team to try and hand RNG a loss.
Yeah, I think whenever people talk about RNG, they always talk about Uzi, and for good reason. He's arguably the best player in the world at this point, definitely the best marksman, and so much of their team revolves around him.
When we did the top 20, we were all in agreement on Uzi, and I don't think the first 3 games of groups have changed anyone's minds. It feels like RNG can win through other lanes, but when Uzi gets going, you're never in doubt about the result.
You see the prompt on your screen right now, so spam in chat. Is Uzi a god? Yes, can confirm, Pog champ. Those are your options.
You can't even disagree.
You can't. No, you cannot.
Who would disagree?
Would you disagree?
No, one can disagree. That's
exactly.
the point.
That's exactly the point. Uzi is absolutely a god, and while he's a god, there are 4 other stellar members on that roster.
Yeah, there really are. And I think anytime you talk about an AD carry dominating in the laning phase, you have to look who he's partnered with. And I think Ming has been so damn good for RNG, not just in finding engages in team fights, but his 2v2 laning alongside Uzi is so well done. I really do think that they are not only the strongest, bot lane as a whole, but some of the strongest individuals.
And I think in the past, Uzi succeeded in spite of his support. There was definitely some supports that couldn't handle his mechanical level. He's been around a really long time. He's been on a journey. Mada, the last one, they were good together, but he's reached a new level with Ming. Part of that is that Ming really does look to Uzi as kind of the leader of the lane, but also Ming's individual moments. And this year, kind of filling out and innovating champions, for example, bringing back the Gragas support at Asian Games. I think increasingly, Western supports and people who are just looking for inspiration on how to play support, they'll definitely look to the Madas of the world, but Ming deserves all the credit as well.
Yeah, but it does go beyond bot lane, of course. I think Let Me Up in the top side has been absolutely fantastic with the fact that he is not someone that they actually put too many resources into. Like we said, all this does go bot lane. The fact that he's having such a great tournament speaks to that.
And there was actually a great quote from him where he talked about if they win, it's going to be credit to other people on the map, and if they lose, it's always going to be flame towards him because he's in that unenviable position, right? He's on he's on a tank, he's doing his best with the resources he gets. However, as we showed in the clip, he's had his individual moments and been just as solid as ever.
He really has, and I think it's such an underrated skill set to be able to like hold even or close to even with no help on the map, because League of Legends, as we know, is all about resources, where you're going to allocate your resources on the map, where the jungler is going to spend their time. If the opposing jungler is going to be up there pressuring you, if you're going to be getting attention from the opposing mid laner and you're not getting that help yourself, to survive is such a difficult task.
And just a small fun fact, when Fnatic was actually over in Korea, I got to do an interview with Soaz, and I talked to him about who the best top player in the world is. And he said, well, all I can say is the best tank top is Let Me. So given Soaz's performances, I feel like he has a good eye for tank top.
Soaz has been a pretty solid performer so far this tournament. So high praise there, throwing it Let Me's way. Let's talk about Karsa in the jungle for this squad.
Yeah, he's a really recent addition joining this team, and I think brings a really unique flavor to them, where it feels like when he's in, they slow the game down a lot, and they take a lot more controlled approach and making sure that they're scaling up, playing more around vision and item timings and, you know, power spikes within their team comps. And I think that's something that traditional Chinese play styles people talk about sometimes lacks, where it's a lot more about fighting and kills.
I can't help but smile, though, because MLXG is the unique flavor of this team.
Yeah.
Right? He's definitely the spicy packet, if you're trying to work out what ramen sauce and the popcorn, if you will. But I think it's the fact that the team could deal so well with a much more tempo-based jungle that reminds me of Score. I thought those two always get the high praise. The fact that they've been able to, game on game, adapt to the crazy and also the more standard says a lot about RNG.
Yeah, definitely one of the favorites to win the whole thing. My question to you three is, on the day today, do they go 6-0?
Yep, I think they're just too good. I mean, they have looked insane individually. Their laning has been good. Their team fighting has been good. And it feels like they are one of those teams that is playing at a super high consistent level. The one thing I will say is, you know, if they secure first and then they swap in MLXG, you never know what you're going to get. So maybe we could see a random loss.
That was the most concerning thing when I was looking at if they would go 6-0. And it is against Gen G, who does feel like, if any, more
They played them close.
They played them close, but it feels like they would be more susceptible to the aggressive style, whereas like C9 and Vitality both feel super down to like, yeah, let's scrap it out early, which I feel like makes it more volatile of the matchups.
I just think that MLXG in a best of one, and the fact that they have a really good matchup against Gen G doesn't change it enough to give me any real pause. So I'm happy to go with 6-0. I think they look like the best team at this tournament, better than KT Rolster, whatever my regional colors say. So RNG, they're going all the way.
They've had a year of success, and Uzi actually spoke to us about what that MSI victory meant for the team.
我觉得在我们赢下 MSI 的时候，对我们整个队伍的状态是有所影响的。因为在这样子的话，我们在后面的比赛就会更有信心，也知道我们打到最后的那一刻要怎么去拿下那个冠军嘛。所以说在我看来是对我们帮助特别大的，因为也是我们的第一个世界冠军嘛。所以说让每个队员都已经享受过了那个感觉以后，就会更有信心去拿下第二个世界冠军。
So what's interesting, Jat's stats that we're stealing from him was the fact that of teams that
Definitely
finished...
not Jat stats.
Definitely not Jat stats.
Yeah, he's not here. Don't give him credit.
I've never even heard that name before. So of the teams that go 6-0 in groups, one was SKT, and they 2015 won the World Championships. 2016 it was
2014
Samsung White. They won it, and then in 2017 it was Longzhu, who ended up losing to the later world champions in
Gen G, Samsung Galaxy.
Yeah, so
exactly.
If you go 6-0, it looks good for you.
They're positioned to do it, and while the top spot seems locked up, there's still one more to play for in this group. So let's take a look at the other teams in Group B, starting with the reigning world champions, Gen G, formerly known as Samsung Galaxy.
And I think this is easily the big favorites, especially based on reputation. It's based on the fact that Korean teams, when we hit this one group format, traditionally have been able to level up. But given the other variables here, specifically no days in between to VOD review, and just what I've seen, the eye test for me for Gen G has been a bit worrying. I feel like they haven't been able to recreate the style that propelled them to the World Championships with their great gauntlet run after a pretty indifferent regular season. So specifically, if I'm looking at what I want to see from Gen G today, I think it's empowering Haru. Haru's KDA, if you look at the stats, are quite good, but using him as a weapon in the early game to bridge to the inevitable ruler carry, kind of like RNG bridge towards the Uzi carry, is what I'm going to be looking for. And the man next to him in Crown, going for the Aatrox, going for the Syndra, going for himself, I think that's where Gen G haven't looked strong. I want to see the Karma Lulu. They've tried the Lulu once, but just push the lane and be there to be a utility. First for Haru, then later for Ruler.
I think it's easy to look at them and say they haven't shown you what you expected coming in, but they are still getting better game over game for the most part, I would say. The C9 one, you know, even though it was a C9 throw, they did a great job just deflecting all that mid pressure as Blabber just went mid again and again and again. So I think they've done a good job of showing a controlled game that is probably going to match up pretty well against Vitality and C9 as long as those mid ganks don't start working.
A little bit more prep, a little bit more polish. Azael, talk to me about Cloud9 as they try and make their run out of groups.
Yeah, I think for Cloud9, you know, they are subbing back in Sven Skaren, so it is going to be a lot still about him playing aggressively, pairing up with Jensen. And for me, they have to do kind of 3 major things that they're looking for. We need to see Licorice playing a priority top because he has been, I think, their star throughout the tournament. I want to see the mid lane still working well with the jungle as they did, you know, you called out working well with Blabber, Sven's in, but same thing needs to apply. And then for Sneaky and Zeyzal, they need consistency. They just need to play to not fall behind. They don't have to dominate, just don't let it go all to hell.
yeah, like the RNG game.
You've seen more of Sneaky and Zeyzal. I think they have struggled a bit on lane. What looks like safety? Like, if you think back to NA, what are we talking about in terms of stable, especially given the tournament meta?
I mean, we've talked about, like, Braum as a champion that, like, I don't think any of us are in love with, but I think it looks better than his Nautilus, because when Zeyzal feels like the main engage, it just all comes apart, and he's almost always dead at the start of fights. So if you have Sven Skaren, who's more of a reliable engager instead of Blabber, maybe you can look for Zeyzal as more follow-up than primary engage.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom Kench has worked well for him in the past as well, if that's going to be available. I know it is getting quite a few bans, but something more along the lines of the defensive supports, I do certainly prefer even an Alistar over something like the Nautilus, because it feels like, you know, there is more survivability, at least with the ultimate.
I'll also just be curious to see if this Draven ends up getting let through for Sneaky. We've seen it hit the ban table, and I know it doesn't necessarily fill that role of play safe and farm, but for whatever reason, people seem to be scared of it to some degree. So if it makes it through, I just want to know why it is feared at this point.
To me,
gotta be scrims.
Yeah, it's gotta be scrims, or I don't know if C9 has shown enough to be like, you need to ban these 3 things. Like, this isn't G2 where it's like, here's Heimer, Aatrox, Urgot, you must ban these. Like, I think people have bans they can do, and Draven is a bit of a pocket pick right now, and so they're just saying we don't want to deal with that.
Just not gonna deal with it. All right, one more team in this group to discuss, and that is Team Vitality. What's the recipe for success?
I think it's just keep it rolling. Do more of the same. They have been playing so aggressively. They have been bringing out unique picks. So I just want to see them stick to their guns, stick to their playstyle. Because if they are going to beat teams like Gen.G, if they are going to beat teams like RNG, it is not playing their opponent's game. It is playing their own unique style.
I just don't think Vitality conforms. I think they continue to innovate. The Echo, very much a pocket pick, but one that we know works into Syndra. Keep back rolling into these picks for Jizuke. Build around this man who's already proved to be a big carry. You think back to teams in the past, Cloud9 in 2015 were rolling with the Veigar Tristana, and people took note of that. Team WE last year, Caitlyn Jana beating the Ardent Sensor meta. I think there's ways to stay ahead, and Vitality worked the best on the razor's edge.
In Jizuke in particular, talking about him, you know, we were doing a meeting last night, and the question was raised, like, is he having a better Worlds performance than Caps? And, like, just the expectations coming in that they have 2 great mid laners now, and Jizuke really stepping up and having these monstrous games that are helping hard carry his team is someone that I think you want to keep putting resources into, keep giving him counter pick. He is delivering with his pocket picks.
First professional Italian player making his Worlds debut and absolutely smashing kids while doing it. It's been a joy to watch. Having a game plan is one thing, but executing on it is entirely another. So the final question is, who actually makes it out of this group? We have all 4 of us throwing our predictions up for how the group will play out at the end of the day. And it looks like
pretty
the
similar.
only differences we have is that we all go 6-0, we all go 3-3 on Gen.G, and then we are split across the middle whether or not Cloud9 beats Vitality or Vitality beats Cloud9,
and
essentially.
I think that's pretty fair. These are both 2 very up and down teams. You know, I think either team could take it as shown in the first Cloud9 Vitality game. I think where the group gets really exciting, though, is if Cloud9 or Vitality have a real pop-off game in those first couple matches.
Yeah, I mean, if they can take games off of either RNG or Samsung, it suddenly flips the importance of that game because now the other team has to catch up to you. And so any of those upsets are going to be massive. Both these teams, I feel like, have upset potential. And when you put 2 upset potentials against each other, you just really have no clue what's going to happen.
But I think back to a group last year, the Fnatic group, where we thought after 2 or 3 games, okay, the results are done. We're going to have these burner games. Are people going to be hiding strategies? Then Fnatic went berserk and went from 0-4 and still qualified. So at the end of the day, anything's possible. And RNG Vitality is a sort of game where Vitality looked competitive for a bit the first time these 2 teams played. If the win starts there with Vitality, who knows what happens in this group?
I mean, it's definitely fair to say Vitality threw that game to C9 after winning for a large majority of it. And that's why I personally still feel like I would take the team with the more consistent early game, but it is still so up in the air.
Yeah, very much so. Well, only time will tell how the results fall for these teams in Group B. All that can be thrown out the window with our first game today. So let's send it over to Riv, Kobe, and Officio for Game 1.
Thank you very much, Dash. And man, I am so ready to get back into some games. It's only been a few days since I've been yelling, but I have some yelling pent up, and it is ready to come out.
I love it when we're about to end a group, too, because especially a group like this where 3 teams are actually tied, Vitality, Cloud9, and Gen G, all working so much today to try and get out.
And I like the fact that we all think, oh, the Korean team, of course, they're going to make it out. But based on the performances we saw last time these guys played each other, it feels like, no, C9 and Vitality, there's a real chance that they can actually get out of this group here, and that's very exciting when a lot of people looked at this initially and said, oh, it's RNG and Gen G for sure.
40 seconds until we will get into that champion select, unless we decide to jump in sooner. But the players getting their meditation moment. You see Jizuke on the screen right there. The man who was considered to play a bit more utility throughout the regular season, and now just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Chooses the Echo to come out, and this guy has, as you saw, ridiculous damage percentages, and he's kind of wowing everybody.
I know, and I'm really happy because this was the spring split Jizuke, the guy we were so excited about in Europe because he was a rookie coming in. It was another one of those EU mids joining the ranks, and he was just like popping off left and right in a very fun way. And that's kind of also been describing Vitality. Like, whenever I see that I get to cast Vitality, I'm like, yes, here we go. This game is going to be insane. We know it's going to be non-stop action as well.
Yeah, I think one of the